Hey guys, what's going on? This is Adam R46. I am the founder and moderator of our Grand Prix Travel, and this is our new episode of Know Before You Go. Today we're going to cover Miami and Imola. And I've been to Miami. I have not been to Imola, but we have some people who have been, and I'm familiar with the area. I've been to MotoGP out in Misano a couple times, and it's a great place of Italy to visit. It's known as Motor Valley, which is kind of the home of Ferrari, Ducati, Lamborghini, Pagani. It's pretty incredible out there. In Miami, well, it's Miami. It's a party and lots of lots of sports, lots of things to do, lots of good food, beach vibes. I mean, it's got everything. So joining us today, we got Greg with FanApp. Greg, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I guess you did the intro for me, so there we go.
Yeah, we've got Andrew with F1 Destinations, and we've got Zoe.
Hi guys.
All right, so let's get right into it. Miami GP. Andrew? What's your take on attending the GP, just in a general sense? Is it something you want to travel to? Is it something meant for locals? I feel like it's a real destination race.
I think it's definitely a destination race. The kind of race you go to, build it around a 1 or 2 week holiday, maybe some beach time. Lots to see and do in the area, but it's also very much one of the more expensive races to attend on the calendar. All the US races are now right up there in terms of cost for race tickets, accommodation, etc. But I think it'll be a lot better this year. There's a school of thought, don't go to the first edition of any new event because it will be poorly organized. I think it would be unfair to say Miami was poorly organized. There were a few pockets of poor organization last year, but also a lot of things went really well for the first year. So I think they've learned a lot and will improve the fan experience this year.
Yeah, so my take on it was I went as just a general fan. I bought a 3-day ticket for the Turn 18 Grandstand. And from my point of view, everything was incredibly organized. The stuff I was reading did not match kind of what I was experiencing because I felt it wasn't crowded. I think that the high ticket prices kind of kept the audience at a manageable capacity. And also the stadium is used to hosting NFL crowds, which are just massive, and they're efficient at managing the flow of traffic, both in and out. I mean, the crowds into the grandstands, it was easy to go down and grab a beer or food. Lines weren't too bad, and I just think that from the fan perspective, I have a great time. Zoe, what about you?
I think internally it was more chaotic being in the paddock. A lot of drivers and teams were pissed because there were the celebrity garage, so cameras everywhere, and it was hard to get from one side of the paddock to the other, and it was so small. So everything was so congested. I think that's where a lot of hate about the Miami GP came from. And the routes that they had people walking from the F1 paddock suites, they had it called something different that weekend. Someone else took over. There was no paddock club, I don't think, unless it was above the actual paddock.
There was a paddock club, but we can talk about what happened there.
It was bought out by somebody. It wasn't normal. I don't.
It was just run by a different catering organization to normally. Yeah. So it was a paddock club, but normally it's called Austrian company called Doe & Co. That run the paddock club to a very high standard, and the Miami organizers said, no, we can do it ourselves.
Yeah, so we didn't do the paddock tours for them. We just did it for, I think it was F1 Experience
I think you were doing it for maybe the Champions Club, which was on the other side of the stadium. Yeah,
that's what it was. Yeah, so we had to walk people down the spiral. It wasn't even, it was just a spiral. I don't even know what it was. It wasn't a walk. Yeah. It was just a walkway, I guess.
Yeah.
And so internally, I think there was a lot of miscommunication, and the security people were not knowing fully what was going on. But I think that happens at every first event. And I heard all good things about the fan stuff outside of the actual like paddock. So that's
I could give you a bit more insight into the paddock club because I've worked in the paddock club, one of the suites with F1 experiences. We had 100 guests only, but through the whole weekend, we just had random people that were not supposed to be even in the paddock club, just wandering in and eating and drinking. They weren't coming into our suite because we were checking credentials and saying, sorry, you can't be in here. But
yeah,
I don't know if you noticed, Zoe, halfway down the paddock, there was an exit, the turnstiles for exiting the paddock. And at every other race, a meter away, you would have a second set of turnstiles to enter the paddock club.
Yeah.
There was no second set of turnstiles. So if someone had a paddock pass, which doesn't grant you, you get in the paddock, but there's no food and drink, there's no spectating. People were just coming out of the paddock and straight into the paddock club and just going and getting food and drink.
Yeah, I remember it was like pure chaos.
It was crazy. Yeah.
Okay, so the stadium's located in Miami Gardens, which is technically not Miami, and I guess not really Fort Lauderdale. It's kind of in the middle, or about the same distance of both, from both airports. The circuit itself is semi-temporary. There's some parts that are paved kind of through the demolished tennis courts and some what is like public roads or service roads kind of around the stadium. And so it's kind of a weird hybrid of like permanent facility, but it's temporary in some places. So it's just kind of a unique circuit, which they are supposed to repave this year. And hopefully that makes a big difference on the type of racing that we get. But what's I think the two major airports are going to be Miami International and Fort Lauderdale, and Miami will probably have the majority of the international flights, and Fort Lauderdale, I've noticed, has more domestic flights. But they both kind of get those, I guess, both types of flights, but I feel like Fort Lauderdale might be cheaper to fly into if you're coming from America versus coming from overseas. You're probably going to want to fly into Miami International because there'll just be more availability, cheaper tickets. How did you guys get to the circuit each day?
Zoe, you go first.
Yeah. Sure.
I would say that Fort Lauderdale is definitely an easier airport to fly into. Miami was horrible. It was so crowded. Miami in general, without an event going on, is just crowded. So Fort Lauderdale, if you can get a flight into there, I live in Arizona, so
Audio froze a bit.
So by our team. And I would say getting there in the morning is kind of better. You can explore around. They have water stations and stuff. So if you bring a temporary or like a refillable water bottle, getting there and being there all day, I feel like there's a bunch of stuff to do. They have so many things out there as well, like event stuff that you can do giveaway. Like they have giveaways and stuff. So being there all day, I think is worth it to beat the traffic. I don't know what it was like in the afternoon or like the times, but in the morning, not bad traffic, easy in and out. Yeah.
I flew into Miami International. I think I flew with Lufthansa, and I hired a car and drove for the first time in the USA, which was somewhat of
you rented
baptism of fire. One thing I would point out, I thought the car rental pickup drop-off location at Miami Airport was awesome. It was huge. It was really well organized, quick to both pick up and drop off the cars, and really efficient. Getting out onto those 6-lane highways, having to drive was a bit of a shock. Also, I did kind of get ripped off at the airport with a SIM card, because I was about to hire a car. I needed a local internet to be able to navigate, and it didn't seem like there was any kind of T-Mobile shops or anything like that. I had to kind of pay, I think it was $100 or something for a local SIM card, but it was either that or not know where I was going to go.
So my experience, I book all my stuff with points, and I I shop around a lot. And so I flew into Miami International, rented a car. And then when I flew back to Austin, I flew out of Fort Lauderdale. And so I got to experience a little bit of both, where flying into Miami wasn't too bad. I don't remember what day I flew. I think I flew in Friday morning. I skipped Friday at the circuit. I flew into Miami Friday morning, and they have the Metro or Miami Mover that'll take you to that rental car facility. It was really easy. And I'm used to driving in America, so getting on highways wasn't too bad for me. That overall, I had a pretty good experience. I was staying in Wynwood, and so Wynwood is kind of kind of like a up and coming arts district with a lot of good local food. And so I wanted to stay somewhere that's kind of walking distance. It was my first time in Miami, so it was just something new. And my wife wasn't going to the race. She just wanted to hang out. So I wanted to find somewhere where there's things to do that are walkable and things like that. And then flying out of Fort Lauderdale was pretty easy. We ended up going to the beach in I think the Hollywood area. While we were kind of killing time, we had like a couple hours between like checking out of our Airbnb and before we had to get to the airport and drop off the rentals. So I think we got lunch and just hung out by the beach and then flew out of Fort Lauderdale. I felt like security wasn't too bad, and drop off for the rental was similar to Miami, where I believe they had a whole rental car facility and then you just catch a shuttle to the terminal. And we flew out on Monday, and I was surprised how easy it was, but maybe that's just the Fort Lauderdale airport thing.
Yeah.
I mean, even for other big events, like Miami seems to handle it really well. I think the thing is like, what do you want to be doing outside of the race, if anything? Because that's going to determine how much traffic you want to sit in, how far you want to drive. Like a lot of people talk about going to South Beach, but you've got to weigh all of the traffic getting out there, all of the traffic getting off the island if you're coming back at the wrong hour. So I feel like Fort Lauderdale is like super convenient, or downtown Brickell might be another good option for like nicer hotels without having to deal with all the inconvenience.
So what are some, what have you, I guess you've been to Miami a couple times, Greg?
Yeah.
What's your favorite things to do in the afternoon? Like once I'm done with the race day, where do I go?
Some of it I probably can't put on here. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I think it really depends. Like I do love like South Beach. If you're at a nice hotel, I think it's definitely really worth it being over there, because they, while it is more expensive, they really are well taken care of. The beach is really nice. So I think being in that area, it's very lively at night. There's a lot of sort of the major restaurants that you have in all other parts of the world tend to open up another annex in Miami. So you have really good food, great nightlife. That's a great area. And then you hit on Wynwood. I think Wynwood's awesome. Mostly all outdoor bars. There's breweries. There's a taco shop with like a secret club in the back, or not so secret. So like there's plenty of stuff to do. I really don't think you can go wrong in Miami. It's just a question of like, do you want to wander off the beaten path, or do you want to stay in one of these bigger areas that's a lot more commercialized and maybe a little bit more expensive than, I don't know what the average person's budget might be.
Yeah. Zoe, what about you? Where do you like to stay when you go to Miami?
I stayed near the Aventura Mall, and I think it was perfect because we were far enough away so restaurants weren't too crowded around us, and being able to just like walk in the mall, you can grab coffee in the morning really quick. I loved staying in that area. We also went to the South Beach area at night, and I think everywhere around there, if you wanted to go out at night, was reserved for some F1 after party. So if you want to go out after and you have like, say you've been to Miami before and there's a club that you like, it was almost 99% that it was rented out by some event and you have to get tickets. And all tickets were sold out too. So I would prepare for the nightlife if that's what you're into. I remember it was a struggle. The whole team wanted to go out and we didn't think ahead. And that was definitely, everything was booked.
That's a great point. Because I think, so like one of the places that typically has stuff is Live, for example, in the Fontainebleau. And like, I think tickets were maybe $300 GA, but you'll have like Calvin Harris or David Guetta. So if you want to go to that, it's probably on the highest end. And then you have maybe something like Story, which is typically open later, but I think tickets are usually a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely buy now if you're looking to go.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't wait till the last minute on those. It was crazy. I was not prepared at all for that. I don't know why I didn't think of that, but that was one thing I wish we all would have been more prepared for.
So in Wynwood, my experience was like we went out to a brewery, J. Wakefield, and I had some really high ABV stouts that's just what I'm into. And so we got a little tipsy, and then we walked around. Red Bull had an event that was kind of like a market setup with a bunch of different vendors, and they had DJs doing sets. They had a few bars spread out, but the whole area is surrounded by just restaurants, bars, and just all kinds of different things to do. And so getting there was kind of just entertaining. I mean, there's people everywhere. It was like midnight, and the event itself, it seemed like it was kind of winding down around that time. I guess everybody was kind of off in the bars and stuff, but there was still a good little crowd kind of hovering around the DJ and dancing and lights everywhere. And I took a bunch of funny pictures with my wife. They had a bunch of different setups, kind of props and things like that I mean, you don't normally see unless you really go out to some clubs and things like that. But yeah, we had a good time in Wynwood, and it was fun. I didn't have to have any like reservations or tickets for some of that stuff. I just kind of kept an eye out on social media for where some of the free events were. And so there, Miami, I feel like it kind of has a good range of things to do where you can do stuff for free that's still F1 related, because there's free events throughout the city that they hosted, live watch parties and things like that for practice, qualifying. And then at the end of the day, they turned into clubs essentially. And it was just an open area. You just walk right in. It was cool. Had a good time.
There was a big festival at South Beach last year, wasn't there? FTX sponsored it off the grid, I think.
Yeah,
I'm guessing
that was with Mercedes, and then McLaren also had a building they rented out, and they had a bunch of cars on display, sold merch, and they had watch parties and things like that. Which that one you did have to get tickets for. It was free, but you just had to basically do one of those free RSVP things, and you were on their list to be able to access it.
I'm just wondering if this year, with the whole, cryptocurrency wealth having dropped so much in the past 12 months, whether some of the high-end places won't be, quite so buzzing, or people throwing so much money around.
Yeah, walking around Wynwood, I felt like every 5 cars I saw, one was a Lamborghini. It was insane, the money down there. It was like Monaco. It was like, it really surprised me.
That's also great South Florida, though. Like, that is so Miami in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Anywhere you are, whatever you're doing. So maybe a little bit quieter, but I don't think it's going to be that much different.
Yeah.
And that's also what makes it such a great place. Like, I think the vibe, generally speaking, is much more of a party atmosphere. And so if you want something, where you don't leave the track and the town's asleep, like the place is just waking up, it's actually a great place to be.
Yeah. No,
anecdotally, I've heard that tickets have not been selling as fast as last year for the Miami Grand Prix. So maybe, obviously that's a good thing if you're looking to go this year and you haven't got tickets yet, because I think there's still a fairly good range of tickets available at different price points.
Yeah. So the other thing I've been wondering is they haven't showed their parking or transit kind of situation that they have coordinating. I know last year there was some lots that were kind of scattered around the stadium property, kind of through neighborhoods, and I ended up getting a free parking pass emailed to me. But I bought 3 tickets for Turn 18, and they just emailed me whenever they announced the parking that, hey, here's a parking pass, and so I don't have to pay for it. I don't know how much it cost for other people, but I parked in, I believe it was like lot 30 or 31, right along the canal of the that runs like on the north side of the stadium. Greg, do you want to pull up the photo of the parking map? And the getting to that area, I took the turnpike, and like I said, I was there in like 30 minutes maybe. And the parking lot itself, I was parked in lot 30. The entrance was along that main road where all those the pink parkings are kind of situated. And from there, it was about a 10-minute walk to the gate. I was kind of right along, I guess, the north side of the stadium at Turn 18. And so overall, I had a great experience. I was able to get in and out of there really fast and easy. I know some people didn't have that experience. But I think they might have been parking kind of on the opposite side, or they took the shuttles and public transport out there to the circuit. Because I know that there's two different options for rideshare. There was either remote drop off or a walking distance drop off, and the remote drop off was, I believe, Greg, you had that, highlighted here.
Yeah,
So
it's a lot.
you
A
were
lot further out.
kind of pointing it, or you're getting dropped off by Uber and then catching a shuttle for about 20, 25 minutes, depending on the location. And I heard that the wait for the shuttles got kind of hectic for some people, but I feel like they probably saved a decent amount on Uber, or at least it's more catered to locals who have a better option of driving, because parking around the circuit, if you don't have a parking pass, I think that it's all residential neighborhoods. So I think it's a decent option, but probably not plannable unless you get with the local. But a lot of houses around the area let you park in their grass or their driveway for like $20 to $40, depending on the people there. But I saw a lot of people offering that.
Sorry to interrupt. They're used to that because of the football games, right? So
Yeah.
you might even be able to go a day early and kind of scope it out if you're there and see what you can get.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the alternative, right, for this is you're either going to take the shuttle, or if you're willing to see how traffic is, right, you can get within half a mile to a mile walking distance away from the track, and they actually let you do drop off and pick up at either of these spots. And one of the things that we've done in the past, like when we've gone with groups, is you could talk to the cab driver and say, look, this is going to be the time, and you can arrange a price kind of off the meter, so to speak. And that might be a good option for guaranteeing a ride back if you set something up.
Yeah, and I think that they are going to kind of officially announce the parking or the transit system that they have, I think early next month. So it could be next week or the week after.
Yeah, it should be early April, I think, is the last thing we heard from the organizers.
Yeah. So what about hotels, or where did you guys stay, Andrew or Zoe?
I stayed in Fort Lauderdale, and the name of the hotel escapes me. I think it was an American chain hotel. It was pretty good. I enjoyed staying in Fort Lauderdale. It wasn't South Beach, but it was long, hot days at the track, and we had places to go out for dinner without reservations, within walking distance of the hotel. I was going to ask something. Is it worth mentioning at all, especially in terms of where to stay, but also general weekend experience about like personal safety and, places where you shouldn't go in Miami because, they're a little bit sketchy or dangerous, or that side of things, because you do, the city does have a little bit of a reputation as but not always being.
I was about to ask if you felt safe walking around your hotel where you were staying.
In Fort Lauderdale, I did, yeah. I don't know if Zoe had a different experience.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the hotel, but by the Aventura Mall, it was super easy to walk around. I didn't feel like I was in danger at all. I just walked from the hotel to the mall, which it was literally through the parking lot. And we usually kind of ate in that mall. It's like a big shopping center. So I had no problems. Also, the area that I was in, seemed like it was super easy to get anywhere. We had no problems with Ubers or rides or anything, not traffic around that area in general. So I had no problems where I was staying.
Yeah, and Wynwood, one of the things that I kind of pay attention to when I'm traveling is there women and children about? Then if there is, and it's probably safe, especially if they don't look like tourists. There's sometimes, like I've been to Mexico where Mexico City, you walk down a road and it seems kind of empty, but then the one right next to it is like super populated. I'm going to stick to the one that's more populated. Yeah. So I think if you just follow that general sense of self-awareness, it can help, ease back a little bit, at least my anxiety, so things like that. If you're in Florida and if it's night and you're walking around by yourself or maybe with a partner, if you don't see people around, I don't think it's a bad idea to make sure don't just be locked in your phone navigating. Have your partner kind of scoping things out, and just keeping self-awareness. But
Yeah,
overall, I felt safe in Wynwood.
Yeah, I think that was another thing is I was also in a group and we're all wearing the same t-shirt. So I don't think anyone would want to mess with us anyway. But yeah, I think just being with people in general is going to be your best bet.
Yeah, Wynwood might be the one neighborhood I think of all of them we've mentioned that'd be the one to be on that like well-lit street versus wandering one or two off that area.
Yeah, and so some restaurants seem like they're kind of in alleys where it seems a little weird walking down, but I think it's just an older neighborhood where it's just the way that the roads are situated.
Yeah.
Overall, it didn't feel too bad because I did see crowds of people where there are, a little group of 5 or 6 people that are migrating from a bar to a club or a restaurant to a bar. And so it didn't feel isolated or like I didn't feel like an open target, if that makes sense.
Should we touch on the seating as well and kind of overview that?
Yeah. So I sat at turn 18, which is coming off the back straight. The AutoNation Grandstand, I was kind of right in the middle of that. And the way that the track is situated, it's kind of separated into different, like they call it a campus. And so you have the turn 18 area right behind the grandstand, there's a bunch of tents with food, vendors, and beer, water, kind of a bunch of different pop-ups and some tents that look semi-permanent. I think it might be, it didn't feel like a parking lot because they had like AstroTurf. And so I think that really helped keep, I guess it didn't feel so hot. I mean, it did, but I feel like that definitely helped. If I was standing on pavement in a blacktop parking lot, it would have been completely different. Yeah. And then just behind that, you've got the marina area, which is also kind of, each area has its own amenities where you don't have to walk super far unless there's something you actually really do want to see. Like I walked over to the marina and I got to see the whole fake water situation they had, and I took some pictures because it was just hilarious. And then kind of as you leave that area, go back to the stadium, you got the fountains, which is where they actually have the podium ceremony. So the podium ceremony isn't on the main straight at this circuit. It's in the back of the stadium along this fountains area, which there's mostly a lot of hospitality. There's some standing areas, but it's really hard to see. The podium's elevated, but there's just so many trees, and it's hard to find a line of sight where you can actually see anything as far as the podium. I scoped it out on Saturday, and then on Sunday I went over there after the race ended, and it was a little trek, probably about 10 or 15 minutes. It wasn't too bad, but I got there right around the time that they were spraying champagne, and it was cool to be there, but it was more hearing and watching a screen versus being there because I couldn't see, and it takes away from the experience when there's a bunch of stuff kind of blocking your view. And so that's where I don't know if it's actually worth going over there for some people. At least post-race, you might just want to beat some traffic or just hang out either way, because I'm pretty sure there's probably music and stuff going on too.
Adam, did you go up onto the actual stadium and have a look at any of because you can view on several levels of the stadium as well.
Yeah, so I went up to the stadium and I took one of those giant escalators that goes way up there. It felt like I was on that thing forever. And then I did kind of a lap around the whole top of the stadium while one of the support races was on. And so you can see the area, the corner by the fountains, kind of closer to the marina, that corner, they have these kind of wrap around column walkways that you can either take up or go down. But from there, it's kind of just open general admission where you're shaded. There's a breeze because you're up high and you can see the track. It's a bit further, but there's no screens pointed at you. So it'd be really tough to follow what's actually happening on the circuit. But it was a pretty cool views. And also
I think they call them helixes.
Yeah, they do.
I couldn't think of the word either earlier.
I just remembered.
Things called?
Yeah. And
but
then
that's a great viewing point just to like see it, because you can see from above like how quick they're going through there, and then it's kind of like you don't really want to watch the race there.
Yeah.
Also in the corner by the paddock, you can see into the paddock. So people would start screaming, and then you would know that someone's coming out of the garage or whatnot.
It's also worth noting that they're going to redesign the whole paddock this year and put it inside the stadium.
Yeah, I saw that.
So last year, I mean, there was nothing really inside the stadium, was there?
No, they had some
big screens and storing stuff or whatever, but that was not a focal point inside the stadium. But it will be this year. If people could see all the drivers and the teams and everything, walking around down there, I think it'll be a popular place to go and watch what's happening.
And the good thing about the stadium was that they had all the amenities open with all the restaurants, the bars, the bathrooms, everything is indoor, and it felt nice and cool. That was one of the best places to kind of hang out in between sessions or in between track action, because you could kind of get out of the sun and just cool down a bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think on the paddock piece, so they're adding like a 300 level viewing section, and I know you can look down even if you have a GA ticket, so maybe worth walking over there, even if you have that.
And then I walked over to the beach area as well, and that was kind of its own little party. They had the I forget what it's called, the cabana area, where they had the live music and the pool and stuff like that. It was kind of a separate ticket that you had to have to access that area, but there was a small little kind of area on the side where anybody with a GA ticket was able to walk up. And I saw free practice 3 from there up until I think there was a safety car last year. And I actually saw myself on TV for a second. It was kind of funny. But that section kind of at the end of the beach, the one to the far right at the end of the straight, I feel like that probably has some pretty good views. You should be able to see a decent amount of overtakes. But I talked to somebody who chimed in to a question the other day, who said the very top rows of that section, the awning was built kind of low, and so it actually obstructs your view if you sit in the top rows of the section. You would think that the top rows would give you a better view, but it was actually like kind of built in an awkward way where some of the people couldn't stand up all the way to get to their seats, or it actually blocked the screen where they had to kind of look down to be able to see the screen just because the awning was so low. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's going to be like that this year or not. We'll see. But that's one thing to kind of be aware of with the beach grandstands. But that's where they had, I think Post Malone played a concert right before the race or right before qualifying. I don't remember.
So we had one of those questions come up of like, are there things to do at the track before, after? Like, what were some of the activities that came to mind?
Zoe?
I'm not sure what activities like were in the actual. I think they had like cornhole and that kind of thing, just stuff for like little entertainment. But I don't know exactly what was all in the fan event areas.
Yeah, and I did walk through. They had the fan zone, which is the normal like pit stop experience. They had some of like a replica of the championship trophy, and kind of display of the 2022 car that they had, kind of the show car they were taking around all the races. And then they also had, what else? They had a few things.
Where was the main fan zone? Was that in each of the different sections around the track? Did they have those interactive experiences?
I think it was mostly spread out, but I didn't see that much in the walk between the East Campus to the beach area. I felt like that was kind of a more shuttle drop off and VIP parking.
I was actually running a bus, and just below that East Campus was a huge bus lot where we parked. Yeah, great for the guests because it was close, no walking, no complaints there. I was going to mention something else. Oh yes, something they did the first time last year in Miami. I don't know if either of you guys caught it, was the drivers' parade. Of course, they do that an hour or two before the race. But didn't they also do a team principals parade?
I think they did.
I think they did, yeah.
That's the Drive to Survive effect.
It absolutely. I mean, like just last weekend, I wasn't actually in the paddock in Jeddah, but I was working right next to the paddock entrance, and the likes of Toto Wolff and Christian Horner and Gunther Steiner were just as popular as many of the drivers.
That's
Crazy.
funny. So one thing that I did that was kind of low, like completely stumbled upon it, was at I'm going to say like the corner of the stadium by the fountains. There's a bridge that crosses the track right there. Right there, I kind of stumbled into this area where they were closing it off as they got there and kind of kicking everybody out. But I was just trying to cross the bridge, and I just I hung out right there along the fence because I wanted to get across to get to the other side by the fountains. And then Lewis Hamilton runs right by me, and he was going to a Mercedes, their hospitality tent to do an appearance. And so I was like, oh, wow. Like, I never thought I'd be that close to Lewis Hamilton without being in a paddock. And then, so I hung out around that area, and I realized that that's kind of where the paddock club or some of the hospitality entrances are. They have like a VIP drop-off kind of behind turn 18 somewhere, where I saw like Ludacris, I saw Pharrell, I saw LeBron James, I saw Michael Jordan. I just hung out in that area on Sunday morning for like maybe 20 minutes drinking a beer, and I saw all these people. I like just blew my mind. I didn't think I'd ever really see those types of people at an F1 race. It's the type of people you see on the TV, or you see photos that they were there making an appearance. But I saw them all walk in, and it was in that one little area just under the bridge, which every now and then they were closing it to like kick people out, but I just kind of take a few steps back and then just lingered. And I didn't get a chance to like talk to anybody or get autographs, but it was more just people watching and just enjoying the vibe.
In terms of celebrity spotting and people watching, this is if that's something you're interested in, Miami is definitely the race to go to, along with Monaco and maybe Abu Dhabi. But yeah, absolutely, loads of celebrities there last year.
Yeah, they dedicated a whole garage just for all of them to hang out in, and I think that was like one of their first times doing it, I believe.
I think you're right. I think it was the first time, and now that's an actual product at, I think, 10 or 12 races this year.
Yeah, 10.
Yeah.
Have a guess how much that's going to set you back.
Yeah.
I think it's 30 grand, right, per person?
Yeah, around about $30,000 for the weekend.
Yeah, and they are doing it in Miami again.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure of the exact 10 races. You can probably guess, the high profile, kind of bigger attended races.
They had it in Austin too, which I don't think they had before Miami. I think it did well at Miami, and then they were like, okay, let's throw it in Austin as well.
A mutual friend of mine drove Will Arnett to COTA last year. It just the random celebrities that you see, or it seems like a lot of people come to Austin now. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
So it might be worth, I know that's like the other end of the spectrum, but the GA side, I think a couple of things that are worth mentioning is they're adding, one is you can go to the Porsche support paddock through the whole weekend, even if you have a GA ticket, which is kind of a cool experience. And then the other thing is like they're adding these viewing platforms, which you can pull up here, but they're making it easier for people who have a campus pass, which is that GA ticket, to be able to actually see and experience the race. So it may be a good option, even if you don't want to pay up for the grandstand.
Yeah, because at first I thought these grandstands were pricey, but then everybody else, or at least some of the American races, started raising their prices to match. And so now, what is it, $500 for a general admission for 3 days doesn't seem so bad compared to some of the other races now, at least in North America. But essentially a flat circuit doesn't give you a ton of views, but they're building these viewing platforms that should make it a lot nicer.
Yeah. Are there any, I guess maybe to close this one out, are there any grandstands or seats that you guys would say, yep, this is the one you've got to do if you're going to go that big?
Andrew, do you have any insight to that?
I don't have a lot of insights. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to go and have a look at the different areas myself. Probably should have looked at a few more YouTube videos, which are always a good source of views from a grandstand if you ever thinking about what to go for, go on YouTube, look for the view from the beach grandstand or the marina grandstand in Miami. And for sure, someone will have filmed it last year to give you an idea. I like the look of the turn 18 where Adam was last year, as well as, the grandstands on the outside of the first corner, but they're obviously more expensive. I wouldn't have thought the fountains or the family grandstand have a good view because they're pretty much on a straight. The marina and the beach are probably the best ones to go for fans on a budget but can still afford a grandstand. But I don't have any real insights, I apologize, into which grandstand in each of those areas is better than the others, but normally you can work it out from the pricing.
Yeah. I would agree with those. I think that the beach might be like the best one on the outside, just because I find the most entertaining it like overtakes, and I think that was a place that was more popular. Also, the East Campus, I heard people liked being in turn 1 and just being down there. I think there were good views. The only thing is walking to certain fan zones from there is a long walk. So if you're more into just like having fun, drinking, just experiencing the fan stuff, I would say probably the marina is your best bet.
Yeah, I sat at turn 18 and the view was incredible. You could see them coming down the straight. You could see the half of the straight in the DRS section. Heartbreaking, and then the corner exit, and then you got to see last minute dives in the pit lane. So I saw a bunch of overtakes under the brakes, and then I saw Verstappen setting up his overtake on Leclerc for the win. It was right in front of me. I could see him going into the brakes, that he was following him to stay within a certain area, and I could see that he was pushing that exit, and I got it on video. It's on my review on Grand Prix Travel, but I definitely recommend turn 18. It's just pricey. And if I was trying to attend with a little bit cheaper grandstand while still getting some shade, I would sit at the beach area, probably outside at the end of the straight. But if that's not an option, the inner beach area is cool, just because it reminded me of Foro Sol in Mexico City. It's kind of a stadium vibe with loud crowds. The music is right in front of you. You got screens and timing all over the place. Plenty of amenities around you. I'd probably go for the beach. But if you want to spend a little bit of money, I'd go turn 18 or probably turn 1 area.
Cool. Should we jump to Imola?
Yeah, let's do it. So Imola, it's got a lot of history. It's one of the older circuits that's currently on the calendar. I haven't been to Imola or I haven't been to Imola at all, but I haven't been for F1. The last time I was in the area, I went to Valentino Rossi's last race at Misano, and I flew into Milan, rented a car, and I was driving down to Misano, and I had the full intention of stopping at Imola to take a picture and see the Ayrton Senna monument. That's kind of an infield. It's in a public park, so even if the race isn't going on, you can still go there and take some pictures or leave some memorabilia. A lot of people leave flags and things like that. It's a really cool thing to check out. But I ended up spending a lot of time at the Ferrari Museum in Maranello. It took longer than I thought, just because I couldn't walk away. And so I kind of lost track of time, and I had to get to Misano to get checked into my Airbnb. And so I haven't been to Imola, but I've been to the area a few times, and that's one of the best places to visit. The food is great. The people are friendly. There's plenty of things to do if you're into cars at all, or bikes, because Ducati's from there. And overall, it's just easy to get around, whether you're using public transport, like a train from Milan. You can catch a train to Imola with, I think it's probably 2 hours or less.
It's an hour. It's even faster. An hour and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. And driving to the area is probably about an hour and a half or 2 hours as well. So there's plenty of options. It just depends, I think, on where you stay for the circuit, whether that dictates if you could use public transport as an option or if you need to drive. But so Imola was a replacement for, I believe, the Chinese Grand Prix. And so it was kind of a fill-in circuit in 2020, and they didn't allow spectators. And so it was new or back on the calendar for the first time since like 2006 or 2003.
Correct.
Yeah, 2006.
Yeah.
So it had been away from the calendar for a long time. And so without spectators, all we got to see was on screen. And then last year, they sold tickets, but it was at a limited capacity due to the COVID restrictions by the Italian government.
I think the capacity might have only been like maybe 20 or 30% less than what it will be this year.
Yeah.
I think it was also they put the tickets on sale really late, so they didn't really give people a chance to have much time to buy them. But I did go to this race last year, and honestly, it was a bit like a dream come true for me because I grew up in Australia watching races at Imola on TV. Obviously, there was a really tragic weekend in 1994 when Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna both died in crashes at the track. But it was always traditionally the first race in Europe. It was, early spring, everyone's getting together, and just a fantastic part of the world, as Adam said. I first went to the track in 2021 when we were on a family holiday in Rimini, hired a car and drove there and went to the Senna Memorial. And then I worked at the race last year. And one thing I did do before I even knew that I would have the chance to work at the race was as soon as it was announced to be on the 2022 calendar, I went on to Airbnb and I booked an apartment in the town itself. And the apartment was old and shitty. It was pretty low standard, but I didn't care because it was 20 minutes walk from the track through the town. After the race on Sunday and also Saturday night, there were these huge like street parties and people dancing in the streets and everything. It was like the end of COVID as well. Little pizzerias and restaurants everywhere. It's a special track with a special atmosphere. But we also should note that it's also still got the poor Italian organization. Maybe not as bad as Monza, but you have to have expectations that it won't be run with the same level of organization as a Zandvoort or a Red Bull Ring race. Go with the flow a bit, except when things are not very well organized, and don't be in a hurry to get angry or whatever.
Yeah, so that's what I'm about.
Like, where does that? I heard horror stories from like the food lines, for example, and you have to get tokens to buy everything and convert.
That was Monza. Imola didn't have the.
I think they did have.
They may have had the tokens, but they certainly didn't have the problems, the organizational issues that Monza had. So it was a bit easier. Last year was a challenge for a lot of fans as well because it rained a lot. I remember on Thursday afternoon, early evening, when we had the F1 Experiences activities, and it was heavy rain and it was not fun. And then that meant that a lot of the fan zones inside the track on Saturday and Sunday Friday, Saturday and Sunday were waterlogged. For example, I think we had a picture of the Ravazza R1 grandstand in that slideshow there. And I don't think you can see it there, but on the left side of that grandstand, some of the seats at the lower level, because they're kind of just built into the hill, they were just people were sat in mud. And so, you don't want to get a seat lower down in that grandstand. But in terms of the atmosphere and the location and the things to do and the food and drink, it's right up there for me as someone that enjoys the history of Formula One.
Where would you sit? I think we have the track map, but like where would you look for?
It's a bit strange because in terms of pricing, if you look at the red grandstands on the main straight, there's 4 of them. They were all much, much higher priced than all the other grandstands. I think they're like 800 euros plus. Yeah, 800. Whereas all the other ones are like, 300-400 euros or cheaper, even 200 euros for Ravazza R1. So I don't know I personally wouldn't justify spending, 800 or 1,000 euros just to be on the main straight. I would probably go for Acqua Minerale. So that's the ones DEF there in the purple on the top of the circuit, or the Grandstand R Ravazza is also awesome because you can see the final corner and also down to the starting grid in the pits.
The one call out on that though, and this is what I've heard, so tell me if I'm wrong on this, but is that it's assigned seating in a very like Italian way?
In an Italian way, yeah.
Yeah.
You quite possibly come to your seat and find someone sitting in your seat and not want to move. It does happen occasionally, and more likely to happen in Italy. But in that case, you should just, if you can't get your own seat by talking to the person, then go and grab the people working on the security. Hopefully, sort it out.
Yeah, most of the time I just try to approach them in a friendly way and just say, "Hey, this is," especially I don't speak great Italian, and so I'll just point at my ticket and point at my seat and say, "Hey, this is my seat." But
if this is on Friday, you probably just go, well, it doesn't matter. I'll just go and sit in a seat opposite or whatever. But if it's for the race day and you want to watch a race from your seat, of course, that you paid for, then you want to get them moved on.
Yeah, that was similar to MotoGP at Misano. He had some people that just don't really care, and if you show up last minute, you're probably going to find somebody in your seat.
Yeah.
But everybody's friendly for the most part. And so a general little like courteous, like, hey, sorry, but this is my seat. It goes a long way versus just going straight to security if you can find somebody.
Exactly.
What about Tosa? Did you make it out there?
I didn't. But when I went the year before, it was in summer, and I wanted to go and see the Ayrton Senna Memorial. But there was actually track activity on that day. It was like Formula 3. I'd actually inquired about being able to go, but this was, still the middle of COVID, and there were no fans. But I did actually watch from Tosa, this track action when I was there on a previous time. Tosa's great. I think it's definitely better than those orange or the yellow grandstands, the orangey ones, the Villeneuve ones, because that's essentially a straight. But yeah, and then you've also got these two green areas which are kind of between general admission and a grandstand seat. So the Lawn Tosa and the Lawn Ravazza. So they're essentially seats built into the side of the hill. So the good thing about this track is it's got plenty of natural elevation. So a lot of the areas, even if you're not in a grandstand seat, you'll still be above the track, kind of looking down with good views.
Yeah, that's what caught my eye about Tosa. Whenever I drive it in iRacing, it seems like the grandstands, you could see them and they're just like a way up there. And you can, if you're all the way at the top, you should be able to see down through Villeneuve and like Tamburello chicane and all that stuff. So it looks like it could be a good spot.
I think so. It's the only thing I'd say it's kind of like a little bit further away from like the heart of the kind of fan zone, which is behind the red grandstands on the main straight. That's why I think Acqua Minerale is probably a good spot to watch as well, because it's, it's closer to the action, let's say.
Yeah. And so the good thing about Imola is that it's about a 20-minute walk to the gates from the train station. Am I correct?
It is, yeah. And it's a really pleasant walk because you walk right through the old town, really beautiful buildings. You can grab an espresso on the way or something to eat. And like I said, after the race or after qualifying on Saturday night, hang around, grab dinner in Imola, soak up some of the atmosphere because it's a fantastic little town. There's like Formula One displays in all the shop windows and cool little restaurants. And the other advantage of that is you'll miss, the peak times for the trains, if you're going back to Bologna, if you've got the time, hang around till 8, 9, 10 p.m. and then take the train back, in my opinion.
How does that work? So we had it's sort of central to a lot of other bigger places that probably have better accommodation, place to stay. But how does that, are there areas you'd specifically stay in that region?
I think Bologna is the biggest, but I mean, it's not a huge city, and I've certainly read a lot of people complaining this year they're looking for accommodation and prices are sky high. That's kind of the number one and most popular, but Ravenna, I haven't been there, is also pretty close, and there's a direct train, probably a little bit cheaper than Bologna and maybe a little bit easier to find something. And of course, on Rimini, if you don't mind staying further away, Rimini is a really cool seaside town with a super long beach, lots of accommodation, lots of apartments to rent, that kind of thing. I think a lot of the F1 teams and people working at the race stay in the towns around Imola, immediately around Imola in the vicinity. I can't remember the names right now, but they're more likely to be driving and parking at the track.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think staying in Rimini or somewhere around there, like I've been to Misano or Cattolica, and I feel like it's only about an hour by train, maybe a little bit more. It's completely doable. It's not bad at all. Plus, if you're on a train for an hour, I mean, you just get to chill.
and Italian trains are good. They're fast, they're efficient, generally on time.
Yeah, pretty cheap too.
I was going to say that I'm flying into Milan this year, and the train I think was like 30 USD to get from Milan to Bologna. Super easy. You could buy business, have a reserved seat. Very, very convenient.
Yeah, and so Proudly Sydney had asked about buying train tickets. I looked into it a little bit, and on Trenitalia, they if you pre-buy tickets, it's supposed to be specifically for the train for the time you select, and so they're not really good, or technically they're not valid for a different train. You would have to pay like a penalty fee to change your ticket. But with the race day crowds, I think just buying a ticket for a return later in the evening would be a good idea. And if you don't make it, it might be crowded and they might not really verify your ticket. That's, I feel like sometimes hit or miss, but either way, I think it's good to have a return. That way you're not queuing up at one of the kiosks with thousands of other people who didn't buy return tickets either.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's good advice.
Now, flying in, I know Bologna has a pretty decent sized airport, but I think there's probably limited flights for F1. I feel like a lot of
it's actually a pretty large number of flights. Yeah. I think it's good. I mean, I don't think there's anything outside Europe, but if you're connecting from somewhere else in Europe, you'll get a flight to Bologna pretty easily. But if the times don't suit or the prices or whatever, there are other airports you can consider, like Rimini Airport. I've flown there before. It's not particularly big. It's popular with Ryanair and carriers like that. I think there might be one or two more. I mean, even Milan Airport, if you're on a longer trip and you don't mind being a little bit further away. Well, Milan has 2 or 3 airports.
Yeah.
I'm not sure now, like flights are not bad to Milan. At least from New York, like the flights are not that bad.
Yeah, I think the times one time I flew to Rome, we took a train that was kind of long. It was probably about 5 hours total of getting to Cattolica from Rome by train. So that was a long trip. It was beautiful, but it felt like a really long day. I think you're better off flying to Milan unless you find a really dirt cheap flight to Rome. I think I would consider Rome an option, but you can probably figure something out to get out there for cheaper or more efficient than flying into Rome.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Oh, in the evening, what are for the restaurants you mentioned in Imola? Is it places that you can just walk up and get a table, or is it something you want to make a reservation at?
I think you can do both. I certainly did both. I remember on a Friday night, I'd been working all day. My colleagues were staying in Bologna, and I said, "See you later." And 5 minutes later, I was, sat down at a restaurant with a beer in my hand and a pizza on order. Probably there's some better restaurants in Imola itself where you would want to make a booking. Also on Saturday night last year, I met some Italian fans, some friends, and they made a reservation at a restaurant outside Imola, which was really cool, like in a village. It was Saturday night. It's probably worth making a reservation.
Cool. Some other things to do out there that are really cool is I mentioned the Ferrari Museum. It's not very far to Maranello, but if it's definitely worth a stop. Either, yeah, but it's something that you should definitely buy tickets for ahead of time. They have the factory tour and museum, and then I believe if you do the factory tour, they take you around the what's the circuit called? Fiorano. Yeah, and the museum tour was like €20. It's spend a few hours there. Saw some, I mean, mint condition Ferrari F40. It's like, when are you going to see that?
Maybe in Miami.
Yeah, a white one. Actually, I saw a white Testarossa in Miami.
Also, I've been to the Ferruccio Lamborghini Museum in just outside Bologna. That's the founder of Lamborghini. So there's a more modern museum for like all the new supercars, but this was a bit different. It had, he started out making tractors, and it had a Pope mobile and things like that. But I loved all those classic old Lamborghinis. But they're just a couple of the museums. There's also several other racetracks, Modena, I think, Fiorano we talked about. Huge motor racing history and lots to see in that part of the world.
Yeah, in Bologna, the Ducati Museum is there as well. And they have different rates and different experiences. They have a museum, which is just a bunch of the older bikes on display, but then they also have a factory tour where you can see them building bikes and motors, things like that. It's pretty cool to see.
There is a website, I think it's motorvalley.it, where you can see all of this. You can read about all the museums, racetracks, factory tours, all that kind of stuff in this region.
Sweet. Anything else we want to cover about Imola, or do we have any listener questions we want to kind of go through?
I think that was it.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna ask, like, compared to Miami, which we talked about a $600 ticket. It sounds like in Imola, it's maybe like $400 for a grandstand. You could still get a good view. Yeah. How does the price compare if someone's looking? I mean, obviously you have to accommodate flights.
Yeah. Something that is worth noting, if we talk about general admission, Imola is one of those races where you can still buy a 3-day general admission ticket for $100 or €100, which is pretty good value in anyone's terms. For a 3-day event. I don't know how good the general admission is at Imola or how many fans they will sell tickets to this year, but if you throw in, maybe you decide to camp near the track or stay in a hostel in Bologna or something, you can do a race weekend for probably well south of $500. You can't do that in Miami, of course. There's only a few European races that are still kind of have that level of affordability.
And so I think they are going to have a token system. I think it's looking pretty likely. And so I think it'd be good if you're intending to buy a few extra whenever you do get there, just in case there is the Monza incident happening, just to kind of try to get ahead of it. But I know they did have tokens last year, and it wasn't as chaotic as Monza, but I know that there was less people. But you could still go on and buy tickets to Imola right now. They're still available. And so I just hope it's not an oversold event, kind of similar to Monza.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
We always say every year, maybe they'll learn, but no.
We are checking.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's just part of the territory. You just kind of need to set your expectations a little low and just be willing to go with the flow. And don't get like you said, just don't get upset if things don't go to plan. Just kind of be flexible and willing to adapt and just kind of take what you're given.
Absolutely.
Two very different weekends.
Yeah, which that's why I like talking about this stuff, because it's still F1, but you get to experience completely different cultures going from Florida to Miami. From Miami to Italy. I mean, it's completely different, and
even the race beforehand, it's a back-to-back with Baku to Miami.
I feel if you got to work both of those, I feel bad for you.
I'm not, but I have colleagues that are.
Yeah. And so, Zoe, what races are you working this year?
So confirmed, I'm working Miami, Vegas, Austin, and Mexico. Hopefully some other European races. It's not confirmed yet, but we'll see. So I'll definitely have plenty of advice on Vegas. They're just throwing me into the first time Miami and then first time Vegas this year. So we'll see.
Luckily, it's the first time for everyone, so everyone will be confused.
Yeah.
Also not a bad place to be sent. Like,
yeah.
You want to go? Tell me.
I'm not complaining, but it will be interesting. So I'm excited to see how that event actually plays out. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'll be at the main grandstand there, kind of right towards the end by pit exit. Should be good.
Cool.
Yeah, that'll be
It's a
awesome.
5-day ticket, right?
4-day.
4 days. So there's a welcome thing or something?
I guess. I haven't
Party?
seen details about it. They quietly kind of updated my ticket zone to a 4-day ticket. And so I have a feeling it's going to be an invite to the opening night event, but they haven't released details on it or anything yet. I was talking to somebody in the subreddit who did get in touch with some of the people. I think the person I was speaking to has Skybox tickets, and they said they don't have a start time on it, but it could start as early as 4 p.m. on that Wednesday, which just seems early for an event like that.
They should tell everyone because people want to book flights already.
Yeah, well, I have flights booked.
Yeah, you better book that now. It's $2,500 round trip from New York to Vegas. If you want to go.
Already?
What would it normally be?
$700 on Delta, which is like a nicer airline.
I flew with Delta to Vegas last month, and I think I paid like $220, $240 from Austin. And this time, well, for Vegas, I was looking at flights with Delta from Austin, and they were like $1,500. And so I ended up finding a cheap flight to LA for $200, mixed with, I think I paid like $180 one way and points the other way. And I found a rental car for $400 for a week. And so we're flying to LA for cheap and 4-hour drive or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's smart. Same from Phoenix. It's 4 hours. So
that's not bad.
Yeah. And those drives aren't too bad.
Yeah. Well, I live in Texas, so I'm used to just like sometimes for work, I got to drive 6 hours and I'm still in Texas. And yeah. Yeah. All right. So anything else we want to touch on? I think we're kind of want to wrap this up before it drags on a little.
I think that's it. I think the one thing to flag for everyone would be like the next one we'll do will be Monaco and Spain. So we'll get the date out for everyone soon.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, I'm Adam R46. We've got, I guess, give you guys a second to how to follow you. Greg?
Just jump on the app. Send me a message. I'd love to hear from you.
You can find F1 Destinations on the web and on socials. Give us a follow. We've got lots of really detailed information about traveling to the races.
Yeah, and then Zoe Racing on all platforms. The races that I do go to, I vlog. I try to vlog my event weekend and what's going on inside the paddock. So it's super fun. But yeah.
And if you need a racing tour, Zoe's your girl.
Yeah.
Track tour.
Yep, track tour, truck tours. You got me.
Photo safari.
Yep, I haven't done the photo safari, but all my friends do it and they love it. But yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, I guess we'll see you on the next one.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.